I was 23 when I met Maya. Back then, I thought I had everything figured out. A steady job, a small but decent apartment in the city, and just enough ambition to believe the world was waiting for me. Maya came into my life like she had been waiting too, like a missing piece I hadn't known I needed. She wasn't loud, not the kind of person who demanded attention when she walked into a room. But she had this quiet pull, a way of making you lean in closer, like gravity had shifted around her. The first time she smiled at me, I swear I felt it behind my ribs. We were inseparable for 3 years. We laughed too much, fought too little, and lived like nothing could touch us. Or maybe I just wanted to believe that. Because love, as I learned too late, doesn't always end in fire, it sometimes rots in silence. When Maya left, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just said she was done. That word still haunts me. Done, like I was a chore she'd crossed off, like everything we built was a half-finished project she couldn't stand to look at anymore. She moved out the next morning. I didn't chase her. I thought giving her space would bring her back. But space only stretched the distance further until it became permanent. I tried to move on. Friends told me to delete her photos, block her number, throw away the sweater she left behind. I did all that. But it wasn't enough. Because forgetting her wasn't the problem. She didn't want to be forgotten. The dreams started 2 weeks after she left. At first, they were soft, memories replayed in my head like cruel reruns. Maya laughing at the coffee shop where we first met. Maya kissing me goodnight. Maya lying beside me in the dark, whispering promises. But slowly, those dreams changed. Her face no longer looked like Maya's. Her skin was gray, her lips split and bleeding, her eyes two hollow pits that seemed to look through me, not at me. When she spoke, it wasn't her voice anymore, it was deeper, ragged, something that scraped along the walls of my skull. I'd wake up gasping, the taste of blood in my mouth, my sheets damp with sweat. I told myself it was grief, my mind punishing me for losing her. But grief doesn't follow you home. The first time it happened outside of a dream, I was asleep on the couch. It was late, just past 2 in the morning, when I woke to the sound of my front door closing. Soft. Deliberate. I thought maybe I imagined it. But when I sat up, my TV screen reflected the faint silhouette of someone standing in the hallway. Slim, small shoulders. Familiar. My heart stopped. Maya? I whispered. The figure didn't answer. Didn't move. And then, as quickly as I blinked, it was gone. But when I turned on the light, I saw them, wet, bare footprints trailing across the floor, leading straight into my bedroom. I didn't go into the bedroom that night. I couldn't. I sat frozen on the couch, staring at those damp footprints until they blurred into the floor. My chest felt tight, my breath shallow, every muscle in my body screaming at me to move, to run, to do something. But I didn't. I just sat there, listening. The apartment was too quiet. Not even the hum of the fridge or the tick of the clock seemed to exist anymore. And then, from the bedroom, came the sound. It wasn't footsteps. It wasn't the creak of the bed or the brush of fabric. It was whispering. Her voice. Maya, I said again, my voice breaking. Is that you? The whispering stopped instantly, like I had caught it. Like whatever was in that room didn't want to be known. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat on the couch until morning, lights on, staring at my closed bedroom door. When daylight finally came, I forced myself to go inside. The footprints had dried, leaving faint gray outlines across the floorboards. The bed was unmade, as if someone had been lying in it. And on the pillow, right where her head used to rest, was a single strand of black hair. Maya's hair. That was the start of it. Every night after, the apartment shifted a little more. Small things at first. My phone vibrating with no notifications. The photo frame of us together falling flat on its face. Shadows lingering too long in the corners of the room. But then came the dreams, if I can even call them dreams anymore. I'd wake in the night to find her lying next to me. At first it was her, Maya, as I remembered. But each night she changed. Her skin would peel like paper. Her teeth sharpened, rows of them crowding her mouth. Her eyes were nothing but pits. And she would smile at me, wide and wrong, before whispering things I didn't want to hear. "Why did you let me leave? You thought you could forget me? You belonged to me. Always." And I couldn't scream. My voice would die in my throat as she leaned closer, her mouth stretching too wide, her breath ice cold on my skin. I'd wake up gasping, heart pounding, sheets drenched in sweat. But worse than the dreams was the morning after. Because every time, there'd be something left behind. A handprint smeared on the mirror, too small to be mine. The smell of her perfume lingering in the air. Once, a pair of earrings I had thrown away weeks ago, sitting neatly on my nightstand. By the third week, I started to wonder if I was losing my mind. Grief, stress, exhaustion, I clung to every explanation I could find. But deep down, I knew the truth. Maya hadn't left me. She couldn't. She was here. And she was getting stronger. It was the scratching that finally broke me. I woke one night to the sound of nails dragging across wood. Long, slow, deliberate. At first, I thought it was coming from the walls, maybe mice or raccoons. But when I turned on the lamp, my stomach dropped. The sound was coming from the closet. The door shuddered, just slightly, like something was pressing against it from the inside. My breath hitched, and I froze. Then, in a voice so soft it was almost a hiss, I heard her. "Let me out." I stumbled backward, tripping over my own shoes, my heart battering against my ribs. I wanted to run out the front door, but my body refused. I just stood there, shaking, while the scratching grew louder, more frantic. "Please," she whispered. "You left me there. Don't leave me again." The door creaked. Just a sliver. Just enough for the darkness inside to spill out into the room like ink. And in that moment I swore I saw her eye staring at me through the crack. Not Maya's eye. Not the warm brown I used to lose myself in. This one was black, glistening, bottomless. I slammed the door shut and shoved a chair in front of it. Then I sat against the far wall, staring, waiting, until the scratching finally stopped. After that, things escalated. The whispers followed me everywhere, not just at night, not just in the apartment. I'd hear her voice in the grocery store aisle, behind me in line at the coffee shop, murmuring from the back seat of my car. One evening, while washing my face, I lifted my head and saw her in the mirror. She was standing right behind me, her skin gray and sagging, her mouth stretched too wide, her teeth jagged. Her hand was on my shoulder, though in the reflection, not in reality. I spun around. No one there. But when I looked back, the mirror was smeared with handprints. The violence started soon after. At first, small things, scratches along my forearms when I woke up, bruises blooming on my ribs where nothing had touched me. Then worse. One night I woke choking. Her hands were around my throat. Cold. Trembling. I couldn't see her, but I felt her weight pressing down on my chest. I clawed at the air, gasping, kicking. The whispers filled my head, drowning out my own thoughts. "Mine! Mine! Mine!" I blacked out. When I came to, I was lying on the floor beside the bed, throat raw, voice gone. And carved into the wall above me, deep gouges like they'd been burned into the plaster, was a single word. Stay. By then I knew. Maya wasn't haunting me because I couldn't let her go. She was haunting me because she wouldn't let me go. And she was never going to stop. I stopped leaving the apartment. It wasn't worth it anymore. The whispers followed me wherever I went, her shadow clung to me like a second skin. My friends stopped calling. Work left voicemails I never returned. None of it mattered. Because she was always here. Waiting. Watching. I thought maybe if I gave her what she wanted, it would end. So I dug through the old box of her things, the sweater she forgot, the earrings she left behind, the photos I hadn't burned. I set them on the bed, whispering into the dark. "You can have them. You can have everything. Just leave me alone." The air grew cold, my breath fogging in front of me. The lamp flickered. And then she was there. Not a shadow. Not a whisper. Not a half glimpse in the mirror. Maya stood at the foot of my bed. Her hair hung in wet ropes across her face. Her skin was gray, lips torn and bleeding, fingers long and clawed. But the worst were her eyes, bottomless pits, black and hungry, but with something inside them. Something that still looked like her. "You think I want things?" she rasped. Her voice scraped against my bones. "I want you." Before I could move, she was on me. Her weight crushed me into the mattress, her claws digging into my arms. Her mouth pressed against my ear, cold breath flooding my skull. "You let me leave," she whispered. "Now you don't get to." I screamed, thrashing, but her grip was iron. The lights went out. The whole apartment dissolved into black. And in that suffocating dark, she crawled inside me. Her whispers weren't in my ears anymore. They were in my head. My chest seized, my vision blurred, my body convulsed. I felt her, wrapping around my thoughts, sinking into the marrow of me. Mine! Forever! I don't remember passing out. When I woke, the apartment was silent. Too silent. I sat up slowly, my body trembling, my throat raw. The bed was empty. The sweater, the earrings, the photos, all gone. For the first time in weeks, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe she had finally taken what she wanted. But then I caught my reflection in the mirror. And I froze. Because my eyes weren't mine anymore. They were black. Bottomless. And behind them, in the hollow where my voice should be, I heard her laugh. I don't know if I'm still me, or if Maya is wearing my body like a mask. I walk, I eat, I speak, but the words feel borrowed. When I look in the mirror, sometimes I see her mouth moving instead of mine. And at night, when I try to sleep, I hear her whispering from inside my skull. "You thought you lost me. But I'm here. Always." I think about ending it, about putting an end to both of us. But then her voice grows sharper, cutting through me. "If you die, I die. And I'm not ready to leave you yet. So I keep living. Or maybe she does. Either way, the truth is the same. Maya never left me. And she never will." Now that you know what happened there, let me tell you about another chilling encounter. I was 24 when I moved into that apartment. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom in a half-empty building on the edge of town, but it was mine. After years of roommates, noise, and chaos, the idea of living alone felt like freedom. I told myself I'd finally have peace. The first week, it was quiet. Too quiet, maybe, but I liked it. I unpacked slowly, hung up some old posters, and settled into my routines. Work, dinner, Netflix, bed. Life was simple. Then, the noises started. At first, it was small things, soft footsteps above me when no one lived on the floor above. The sound of water running in the bathroom when the pipes should have been silent. A faint scraping at the walls, like nails dragging across plaster. I laughed it off. Old buildings make sounds, I told myself. Wood expands, pipes moan, neighbors come and go. But late at night, when I lay in bed, the noises didn't feel random. They felt deliberate. One night, I woke to the sound of breathing. Not mine. Slow, heavy, steady, coming from the corner of my bedroom. I froze under the covers, my chest tight, my ears straining. For a full minute, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I forced myself to sit up, hard hammering, and flicked on the lamp. The corner was empty. But my closet door was slightly open. I hadn't left it that way. The next morning, I found something on the kitchen counter, a mug of coffee. Still warm. The problem was, I hadn't made it. I lived alone. I wanted to believe I was sleepwalking, that maybe I had made it without remembering. But deep down, a darker thought gnawed at me. Someone else was here. Living with me. I started locking every door, every window, even the closet. I checked under the bed, inside the cabinets, everywhere I could think of. But every night, the noises returned. Footsteps. Scraping. Breathing. And sometimes, when I woke in the dark, I swore I saw a figure standing just at the edge of the bed. Tall. Thin. Silent. By the time morning came, it was always gone. But the footprints in the dust weren't mine. That was the point. I realized I wasn't imagining it. Someone was in my apartment. Watching me. Waiting. And I didn't know how much longer I could pretend I was safe. The next few nights were worse. I started waking up at exactly 3:17 a.m. every night. No alarm, no sound, just my eyes snapping open to the darkness. The apartment would be silent at first, and then the noises would begin. Soft footsteps. A drawer opening. The hiss of the shower turning on for a second, and then shutting off. I sat up one night, clutching my phone like a weapon, and whispered into the dark. "Who's there?" No answer. Just silence so deep I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. The next morning, I found my toothbrush wet. I hadn't used it yet. And in the living room, my favorite chair had been turned to face the hallway, as if someone had been sitting there, watching me sleep. I told myself to call the police, but what would I say? That I heard footsteps? That my toothbrush was wet? They'd think I was losing it. So I tried something else. That evening, I sprinkled flour across the kitchen floor. I placed a stack of cups by the bedroom door so they'd crash if someone opened it. I double-checked every lock, every window, every inch of my apartment. Then I went to bed. 3:17 a.m. I woke to the sound of a single cup tipping over. Crash. I sat bolt upright, hard hammering. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow, careful, like someone trying not to make noise in the flour. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed it at the kitchen. There were footprints. Bare. Human. Leading from the hallway into the dark. I called out, voice shaking. "I'm calling the police!" The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a whisper, low, almost gentle. "Go ahead." My blood ran cold. I dialed 911, but the call didn't go through. No service. I looked back at the flour. The footprints had vanished. Not just faded, gone completely, as if they'd never been there. I spent the rest of the night curled up in the corner of my bedroom, the door locked, clutching a kitchen knife. When morning came, the flour was clean. My cups were back on the counter. Everything was exactly how I'd left it. Except for one thing. On my pillow, next to my head, was a single Polaroid photo. Me. Sleeping. That was when I stopped doubting. Someone was here. Someone was watching. And they wanted me to know it. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. My body shook too much, and every sound made me flinch. Instead, I stayed home, pacing the rooms, checking closets, peering under the bed. I even climbed into the crawl space above the bathroom, shining a flashlight into the dusty black. Nothing. But I couldn't ignore the Polaroid. That picture meant whoever was in my apartment wasn't just sneaking in, they were standing inches from me as I slept. Breathing over me. Holding a camera steady. I finally called the police. 2 officers came, walked through the place, and listened to me ramble about footprints, flour, and photographs. They exchanged looks, wrote notes, and told me to install better locks. When I showed them the Polaroid, one shrugged and said, "Could be a prank. X maybe?" That stung, but I kept the photo in my pocket like evidence of my sanity. That night, I made a plan. If the police didn't believe me, I'd catch this person myself. I set up my phone in the corner of my bedroom, angled toward the bed. I left it recording and forced myself to sleep with the light on. 3:17 a.m. I woke to the faint sound of breathing again. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just lay there, pretending to sleep, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would give me away. I heard the soft shuffle of footsteps. Then, the sound of something clicking. A camera. I wanted to scream, to lunge up and swing the knife I kept under my pillow, but fear locked me in place. A shadow passed across the ceiling, long and spindly, like someone was standing over me. Then silence. I stayed still until dawn crept in through the blinds. Only then did I reach for my phone. My hands shook as I scrolled through the footage. At first, it was just me sleeping. Then movement. A figure stepped into frame. Tall. Thin. Dressed in black. A mask covering their face. They stood at the edge of my bed for over an hour, perfectly still, their head tilted slightly as they watched me. Then, at one point, they bent down, leaned close to my face. I could see their mask inches from my skin. The worst part? Their hand reached out and stroked my hair. I dropped the phone. My stomach churned. Whoever it was had been touching me while I slept. And then it hit me. How did they get out without me hearing? The locks had been bolted from the inside. I checked the footage again. The last seconds showed the figure walking to the closet. Opening it. Stepping inside. And never coming out. That's when I realized the truth. They weren't breaking in. They were already here. My hands were shaking as I replayed the footage again and again, hoping I was wrong. But no, the figure had stepped into my closet and never stepped out. That closet was just a few feet from where I sat now. The air grew heavy. My chest tightened, and I realized I wasn't breathing properly. I gripped my phone and dialed 911. This time, I didn't hold back. "There's someone living in my apartment," I hissed. "I have video proof. Send someone now." The dispatcher kept me on the line, telling me to stay calm, to stay somewhere safe. But where in hell was safe when the danger was already inside my walls? I grabbed the heaviest lamp I owned and crept toward the closet. Every step felt like walking on glass. My ears filled with a low ringing, my pulse pounding. I reached for the handle. It turned from the inside. I stumbled back, dropping the lamp. The door creaked open an inch, then stopped. Silence. "Stay where you are," the dispatcher said in my ear. "Officers are 2 minutes away." 2 minutes. That was all I had to survive. The door opened wider, slow and deliberate. A figure emerged. Tall. Dressed in black. The same mask from the video, featureless except for 2 dark slits where the eyes should be. They didn't lunge. They didn't speak. They just stood there, watching me. I raised the broken lamp like a weapon, my hands trembling so badly I could barely grip it. "Get out!" I shouted, though my voice cracked like a child's. The figure tilted their head, curious, mocking. And then they stepped forward. That was when the pounding on the front door exploded through the silence. "Police! Open up!" The figure turned sharply toward the sound, then back to me. I swear I saw their shoulders tense, like they were deciding whether to kill me right then and there. Another bang at the door. "This is the NYPD!" The masked intruder bolted. They darted for the window, wrenching it open, but 2 officers burst inside before they could escape. Shouts filled the apartment. "Hands up! Don't move!" The figure froze, caught between the gun barrels and the window. For a moment, the mask turned toward me again. I swear I could feel their eyes, cold and seething. Then the police tackled them to the ground. The mask clattered across the floor. Underneath was a man. Pale, stringy-haired, eyes wild. I didn't recognize him. He wasn't a neighbor, wasn't a coworker, wasn't anyone I had ever seen before. He had just chosen me. As they cuffed him, one officer muttered, "You're lucky you called when you did. People like this, they don't usually stop until it's too late." I sat shaking on the floor, staring at the closet. That night, the police searched it thoroughly. Inside, they found bedding, food wrappers, even a notebook filled with photos of me, taken through my own windows. He had been living in my walls. Watching. Waiting. For weeks, I couldn't sleep without every light on. Some nights, I still woke at 3:17 a.m., my body expecting the sound of breathing. But now, the only thing in the corner of my room is the memory of him. And the knowledge that the silent guest might not be the only one out there. If you thought that story was scary, wait until you hear this next one. I was 25 when I took the job at St. Mary's boarding school. It wasn't glamorous, just a night supervisor's position, keeping watch over the older dorms while the nuns slept. I needed the money, and the building's quiet charm appealed to me: stone hallways, arched windows, and the lingering scent of incense. I thought it would be safe. I was wrong. The first time I heard it, I thought it was a prank. A knock, 3 sharp raps on the door of room 6. The problem: room 6 had been locked for years, left empty after a student's mysterious disappearance decades ago. I froze in the hallway, staring at the worn wooden door. The knock came again, slow, deliberate. A whisper followed. "Open the door." I told myself it was the wind, the old building settling. But that night, I dreamed of a tall, thin figure standing at the end of my bed. Its face was hidden in shadow, and in my dream it leaned close and whispered my name. I woke with my throat raw, drenched in sweat. By the third night, the knocks returned. Always 3, always precise. Always followed by that voice, low and patient. "Open the door." Curiosity, or foolishness, finally got the better of me. I took the key from the head nun and unlocked the door. The air inside was freezing, thick with the smell of rot. My flashlight flickered. The room was empty, bare stone walls and a cracked floor, but carved deep into the plaster were words. "Let me out." And then I felt it, a breath, cold and wet against my ear. "Thank you?" I stumbled backward, slamming the door shut. That night I couldn't sleep. The knocks became pounding. Shadows moved across the hall. Objects shifted while I watched, too fast to follow. A cold presence pressed against my chest whenever I tried to lie down. By the 5th night, I realized I had done more than unlock a door. I had released something. I told the head nun. She listened gravely, then said, "We've had reports before, but none like this. You need Father Thomas." Father Thomas was a priest known for his knowledge of exorcisms and the occult. I doubted it would help, but desperation pushed me to call him. Within the hour, he arrived, crucifix in hand, holy water in a vial. His calm presence alone eased my panic, but he didn't smile. He inspected the room with me, muttering prayers under his breath. His eyes darkened as he turned to me. "This is no ordinary haunting. Something malicious was trapped here, and you've given it freedom." I wanted to scream, but he put a hand on my shoulder. "We end this tonight. Whatever is inside that room will not escape again." The ritual began. Father Thomas drew circles of salt on the floor, sprinkled holy water, and began reciting verses I didn't understand. The air grew heavy, vibrating with a low growl. Shadows swirled at the edges of the room, twisting into shapes, clawing at the walls. The temperature plummeted. My breath came out in white clouds. The knocks on the door returned, thousands of them, pounding, desperate. And then I saw it. The figure from my dreams. Tall, gaunt, its face twisted in fury, eyes black as pits. It hovered in the air, laughing, a sound that shredded the nerves and rattled my bones. Father Thomas didn't flinch. He held up the crucifix, his voice louder now. "In the name of the Lord I command you! Leave this place!" The shadow screamed, a sound I'll never forget. It twisted, shrieked, and lunged toward me. I ducked instinctively, covering my head. Father Thomas sprayed holy water directly at it. The air seemed to burn around the figure. Smoke-like blackness coiled and writhed, then, with a final, ear-splitting scream, it vanished. The room fell silent. The temperature returned to normal. The smell of rot disappeared. Even the carved words on the wall were gone, as if they had never existed. I collapsed on the floor, shaking. Father Thomas rested a hand on my shoulder. "It is done. It cannot return. You were brave, but never open that room again." I nodded, still trembling, knowing I would never sleep in that dorm alone again. That night, as I lay in bed, the halls remained quiet. No knocks. No whispers. Just silence. And for the first time in days I felt safe. But I couldn't shake the memory of those black eyes staring at me from the shadows. A reminder that some doors, once opened, should never be touched. Now that you know what happened there, let me tell you about another chilling encounter. I was 26 when it all started. I never expected that a breakup could lead to something like this. Liam, my ex, had been my partner for 3 years. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it wasn't messy either. Until one night, everything changed. It started with a call. My phone lit up with his name, and though we hadn't spoken in months, I answered. "Meet me in the woods," he said, his voice strained, panicked. I need to show you something." I hesitated. The woods behind his apartment complex were dark, dense, and rumored to be haunted by old legends. Still, something in his tone unnerved me, and I agreed. By the time I arrived, he was gone. Only the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a faint scent of damp earth and decay. The next morning, the news hit me like a thunderclap. Liam had been found dead in those same woods. No witnesses, no signs of struggle, nothing, except the way his body was contorted, his eyes wide with terror. The police called me in immediately. "You were the last person to speak to him?" one officer asked. His eyes were sharp, piercing. "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I didn't see him after that night. I swear." They didn't believe me. Friends whispered behind my back. Even strangers on the street gave me looks of suspicion. I became the target of every theory, every rumor. My alibi was flimsy. I'd been wandering near the edge of the woods after the call, unable to sleep. But I knew the truth, even if no one else did. The woods weren't empty that night. Something had followed Liam. Something that had lingered behind, watching, waiting. Shadows moved in ways they shouldn't. I'd felt it. The cold, creeping presence on my skin, the whisper of leaves that sounded like words. I began my own investigation, retracing his steps, talking to neighbors, anyone who might know something. That's when I met Mrs. Wren, Liam's next-door neighbor. She was an odd woman, quiet, pale, with eyes too sharp for her age. I had noticed her before, always watching from her window, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be poking around," she said when I asked about Liam. Her voice was soft but held a weight that made me shiver. "I have to know what happened," I replied. She hesitated, then whispered, "Not all deaths are natural, and not all humans are innocent." I didn't understand. That night, the nightmares began. Liam appeared in my dreams, standing in the middle of the forest, eyes wide with terror. He didn't speak, but his mouth moved as if forming words. Shadows danced around him, clawing at his skin. I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. By the third night, I felt it, someone following me home. Heavy footsteps, soft but deliberate, always just out of sight. And in the reflection of my window, I sometimes saw her, Mrs. Wren, standing there smiling, watching. I went to the police, but they laughed off my claims. "People grieve in strange ways," one said. "You're letting your imagination get the best of you." But I knew what I had to do. I returned to the woods, guided by the memory of Liam's last steps. The air was thick, unnatural, cold. That's when I saw her. Mrs. Wren. She wasn't alone. Shadows twisted around her like living things, coiling toward Liam's body. And in a single motion, she lifted him, not as a human being but like a puppet, his limbs jerking unnaturally. I screamed. She turned slowly, eyes gleaming with something not human. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. Her voice was like ice across my spine. I wanted to run, but my feet were rooted to the ground. She whispered something, words that made the trees tremble, and I felt Liam's presence leave me in a rush of cold wind. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, she vanished into the shadows, taking the unnatural energy with her. Liam's body fell to the ground, lifeless, but no longer twisted in that horrifying way. I called the police immediately, this time with more evidence, strange symbols carved into trees, scratches on the soil, and the feeling that someone, or something, had been manipulating the scene. They investigated further, and it wasn't long before Mrs. Wren was found. Evidence linked her to Liam's death, not just physically, but through the horrific occult paraphernalia in her home. She was arrested, and the case closed in the public eye. But I know the truth. The woods are alive in ways most people cannot understand. Mrs. Wren wasn't acting alone. She was a vessel for something dark, something that had haunted Liam before she struck. I still hear whispers when the wind moves through the trees, shadows that flicker just beyond my sight. I am free of suspicion, yes. But sometimes, when I pass the edge of those woods, I feel the cold brush of unseen fingers, and I remember Liam's eyes, wide and terrified, staring at me from the darkness. And I know that some horrors don't die with the killers. Now that you know what happened there, let me tell you about another chilling encounter. I was 25 when I realized some part of Liam had never really left me. We had broken up 6 months earlier, amicably, or so I thought. No shouting matches, no dramatic confrontations. Just the quiet dissolution of something that had once seemed permanent. I tried to move on. New apartment, new routines, new friends. But sometimes the past has a way of following you like a shadow you can't outrun. It started with the dreams. At first, they were subtle, fleeting glimpses of him in the corner of my bedroom, standing silently, watching. His expression was neutral, but there was something off. His eyes glinted black in the dark, like pools reflecting nothing. I'd wake up, heart hammering, convinced I'd seen him sitting on my bed, staring. Then came the calls. I'd get phone notifications in the middle of the night, Liam's old number flashing. When I answered, no one spoke, just heavy breathing, ragged and uneven. Sometimes I'd hear whispering, words I couldn't understand, though I thought I could feel the intent behind them, come closer. I tried blocking him, changing my number, even moving my phone out of the bedroom. Nothing worked. One night, I was walking home from work when I saw him, or what I thought was him. Liam was standing across the street, leaning against a lamppost. I froze. It had to be impossible. He had moved out of the city months ago. But his silhouette was unmistakable, familiar posture, the way he held himself, even the way his coat hung on his shoulders. Liam? I called, my voice catching. He didn't respond. He just stepped back into the shadows, disappearing entirely. I checked every street corner, the alleys, the sidewalks. Nothing. After that night, things escalated. I began noticing small, unsettling things in my apartment. My curtains would sway even though the windows were shut. My reflection in the mirror seemed delayed, or sometimes didn't move at all. Objects I had placed neatly on shelves were displaced, as if someone had handled them. And every night there was the faintest sound of whispering, like someone standing just behind me, speaking words I couldn't quite make out. The terror was no longer subtle. One evening, I woke to find the bedroom door open. I live alone. I had locked it. My heart stopped when I saw a shadow move across the floor, pausing at the edge of the bed. Liam? I whispered. No answer. The shadow moved closer, pressing me against the headboard. Cold. Heavy. I felt his, or something's, breath on my neck. My skin crawled as whispers filled the room. You shouldn't have left me. I bolted upright, screaming, only to find the room empty. No one there. Just the faint smell of his cologne lingering in the air. I couldn't take it anymore. I contacted a medium, someone my friend swore could handle restless spirits. She listened carefully, asked questions I didn't want to answer. Finally she said, "There's something attached to him, and now it's attached to you. He's not at peace." "Why me?" I asked. "Because part of him never left you," she said. "And something darker followed him here. You've been living with it. You need help before it consumes you." That night, I followed her instructions. I burned sage, drew protective symbols on the floor, and recited prayers I barely understood. Shadows twisted in the corners, forming the vague shape of Liam, reaching out toward me. The air was thick, heavy, almost solid. "Go back," the medium's voice echoed in my head. "You are not his anymore. He cannot harm you. But the dark can." The shadow hissed, twisting violently. I screamed, throwing salt and incense at it. Slowly it recoiled, retreating to the far corner of the room. Then, just as suddenly as it had arrived, it was gone. Silence. I collapsed, shaking, sweat dripping from my forehead. I could still feel his presence, a residue of fear lingering in the air, but it was weaker now, diminished. I moved out the next day. I couldn't stay in that apartment, not knowing if the shadow might return. I changed numbers, left behind every reminder of him. Yet sometimes, in the dead of night, I feel a chill across my shoulder. A faint whisper, barely audible, I'm still here. I tell myself it's just memory, just guilt, just grief. But a part of me knows better. Some part of Liam, some fragment of whatever followed him, will always linger just out of reach, waiting. And I will never be entirely free. If you thought that story was scary, wait until you hear this next one. I was 24 when I met Liam. We were college students, young and reckless, drawn together by something neither of us could explain. For 3 years he became my world, my first love, my confidant, my everything. But life has a way of unraveling even the strongest bonds. After graduation, the distance grew. Our routines no longer matched. The calls became infrequent. The arguments subtle but persistent. Eventually we broke up. I thought I could move on. I moved to a smaller apartment, focused on work, tried to fill the emptiness with normal life. I thought the past had stayed behind. I was wrong. It started subtly, with dreams. At first, fleeting glimpses, him standing at the corner of my bedroom, watching. His expression neutral, but his eyes, they glinted black in the dark, like something not quite human. I'd wake up, heart hammering, convinced I'd seen him sitting on my bed, staring at me. Then came the calls. Late at night, my phone would ring. Liam's old number flashed on the screen. When I answered, only static greeted me. Sometimes faint whispers followed, words I couldn't understand, but I could feel the intent behind them, come closer. I tried ignoring it. Blocking him. Changing numbers. Nothing worked. One night, I was walking home when I saw him, or someone who looked like him, standing across the street. He leaned against a lamppost, perfectly still, eyes fixed on me. I froze. Liam had moved out of the city months ago. Impossible. Yet there he was, or something wearing his face. Liam? I called, voice catching. He didn't respond. He stepped back into the shadows and vanished entirely. After that night, the occurrences escalated. In my apartment, objects moved on their own. Curtains swayed with no breeze. Reflections in mirrors lagged behind me. Shadows stretched unnaturally along walls. Whispers filled the air, always just out of understanding, repeating my name, calling me back to something I didn't want. Then, one evening, I woke to the bedroom door open. I live alone. I had locked it. At the foot of my bed, a shadow crouched. Black eyes, elongated fingers, a smile stretched too wide. Come back to me, the figure whispered, stepping closer. I bolted, swinging the nearest object, a lamp. The shadow dissipated like smoke, leaving only the lingering scent of his cologne and a chill in the room. Desperate, I contacted a medium. She was older, with piercing eyes that seemed to see into my soul. After inspecting my apartment, she said, "This is no ordinary haunting. He doesn't want peace, and something darker has followed him. You are now connected to it. It won't let go. What can I do?" I asked, trembling. "We end it tonight," she replied. "You must confront it, or it will consume you." That night, we performed a ritual. Candles, salt, and prayers I barely understood. Shadows writhed, forming the vague outline of Liam, twisting unnaturally. The air felt solid, pressing against my chest. He appeared taller, darker, twisted. Eyes empty, mouth stretched unnaturally. He reached toward me. "You left me. Now you belong to me." The medium held up a crucifix, shouting prayers. Smoke and shadows collided, filling the room with a roar. The figure lunged, shrieking, but recoiled when touched by the crucifix. Slowly, agonizingly, the shadow shrank until it vanished. Silence fell. I moved out the next morning. I couldn't stay in that apartment, not with the lingering presence and memories. I changed numbers, left the city, tried to rebuild my life. Even now, months later, sometimes I feel a chill at the edge of my vision, a whisper carried on the wind, I'm still here. Some part of Liam, or the shadow that wore his face, will always linger. And I know I will never truly be free.